morning, obviously, on the occasion of International Women's Day, I should be dedicating my take to International Women's Day. But guess what? I did not, because by my rules, when I have women to discuss, when I have guests to discuss matters concerning we have tabled, I don't write on them. The plan had been that this morning the table will be surrounded by women. I was probably going to be the only man to be in the midst of them. Unfortunately, some disappointments. But we have one woman who never disappointed us. Now, on the occasion of celebrating women, I'd like to say a happy 50th birthday to one of our cherished viewers and listeners of Newsfile. I'm talking about Mrs. Josephine Ansah Ankoma, Mrs. Josephine Ansah Ankoma, MD, EcoBank, Gambia. And for those of you on the production who were trying to blackmail me yesterday, asking that my birthday was yesterday and I must bring a cake, good for you. I didn't bring one. But there's one here on behalf of Mrs. Josephine Anan Ankoma for you to enjoy. And our guest will also enjoy it. Happy birthday to you, madam. And God bless you. And God bless all women on the occasion of International Women's Day. So I've got two of my guests seated, and I'm going to introduce them right away, and then we start our discussion for the day. I have to my right, Clara Berry Kasati. She's no stranger to this show. Occasionally, we are lucky and fortunate to have her to help us. And all of you have always yearned and asked us to get her to come to assist with the education that she gives. Pure, unadulterated education. Clara, good morning.
Good morning.
Happy Women's Day.
Thank you.
Even though it didn't fall on today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for the support.
I have no doubts whatsoever that you are an example of the women for whom we have a day dedicated to celebrate.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having you. Also, in the studio is MP and Deputy Attorney General Joseph Dindiok Pemka, a good friend of mine. He's a brother. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning, Samson.
Right.
Thanks for having me.
Now, joining us right away is an MP and also a lawyer, Mahama Ayarga, the man who is on a crusade against sole sourcing or single sourcing. We'll see how he succeeds with that. I've seen Abdul Malik Kwekubako, Editor-in-Chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper, and our regular panelist coming on to join us. Thank you very, very much, gentlemen. And all of you get ready. We'd like to know what the Ghana Beyond Aid means to you. We will get to understand what it means to the president, Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo. He's been defining it. And then, we want you to tell us what it means to you. There are people who are making all sorts of comments about it, including that if it means going to Nigeria to assist us fight corruption, then forget it. There are those who say this is familiar rhetoric. We are tired of it. Some say you are asking Ghana beyond aid, and yet just not long ago, you were taking a check of how much, a dummy check of how much, shown to the whole world for renovation of, is it the Flagstaff House of where? What's that? Okay, so let's have your text messages on that. But we're dealing with all other matters. Bank of Ghana, coming out to say that there's no approval for any takeover. And I've told you, we'll show you what the fuss really is about and the unnecessary controversy that's been generated over the UNIBANK ADB takeover or controlling acquiring a controlling stake by way of its ADB shares. Now, we are fortunate to start the show by first listening to a man who will assist us with some education on what exactly has been going on as far as that issue is concerned. Philip Kwesi Boabing is a lawyer and banker and former principal, National Banking College. Good morning, Philip, and welcome to Newsfile.
Good morning.
Good to have you. Now, we seek some education. Just hold on briefly and listen to these individuals, argue over this matter, and then we come back to the studio and have you assist us to appreciate what is going on.
We've had a lot of engagement with the central bank, and the central bank has actually offered us a lot of assistance in this direction. They have worked with us, and we are very much grateful for whatever they have given to us by way of directions.
So they approve of this arrangement?
Well, yes. The central bank, I'm sure an arrangement of this dimension. Am I speaking with Daniel?
Yes, this is Daniel.
Yes, Daniel. I'm sure an arrangement of this dimension, you agree with me that definitely you will need the concurrence of the central bank.
So you have signed documents from the central bank okaying this agreement?
Daniel, I mentioned that there is no way that you can push for an arrangement of this magnitude in Ghana without the central bank's signature, so to speak, if you want to put it that way. There's no way you can do that because it is a very huge change in the financial landscape. All right. So definitely, we would. And what I want to just say is that I think the Bank of Ghana has been very helpful in this direction.
So, Mr. Metzel, when was this written approval given?
The meeting to approve this.
No, I'm asking for the written approval from the central bank. Yes.
Oh, well, I can give you the specific date when I get back to the office. I'm just 2 minutes away from the office. But I think that was done sometime this year.
Just to clarify that the Bank of Ghana has not given approval to the purported takeover or through the pledging of shares of the Agricultural Development Bank to UNIBANK. The financial sector must be positioned strong, well capitalized to provide the necessary support to aid the development of private sector-led initiatives. While the economy is growing, it is also becoming increasingly complex and getting more integrated with the global economy, opening up opportunities for banks, but also exposing banks to more risks. The current financial sector landscape with 34 banks, of which many are small domestic-owned, weak banks with relatively low capital base and depth, which is inadequate to support significant levels of lending. These banks could be more vulnerable to minor swings in macroeconomic fundamentals. Such banks, with a small capital base, dilute the franchise value of banks and increase instability. The agenda for the financial system is to create domestic-owned but well-capitalized, solid financial institutions with healthy balance sheets.
ADB has always had minority shareholders. The company in question, Belstar, has been around for a while through the IPO. They acquired in excess of 49%. I am not aware how come all of a sudden their 49% has become 51%. The details are now emerging. We need some time to probe into it and find out how it goes through. Again, information is being hidden in secrecy that some of us are not aware. So it's a major takeover. 2% shares that has switched from minority to majority has made a change. It's early days yet. Let us probe into it.
Understandably so, but to the extent that a state asset is going into private hands, are you worried?
Yes, that is why I'm saying that the Bellstar Capital has been a player in ADB for some years, about 2 years ago, okay? Through an IPO, they took about 40-something%. So the switch is about 1 or 2% that has changed. We will need to delve into it and find out how that happens. I think that is the detail.
Right. So you have been listening to Clifford Metal, who is the executive director of UNIBANK. He spoke first and gave indications that there were all sorts of approvals at various stages, including at the central bank, for what had happened. Then you heard Dr. Ernest Addison, not Thompson. For those of you who were watching on the television, that was a mistake. It was Dr. Ernest Addison, the governor of the Bank of Ghana, stating categorically that there had not been any approval for the alleged takeover. Then you heard Ato Forson, former Deputy Minister of Finance and an MP, also, giving us some light about the existence of some of the parties and the processes of the, ADB IPO process, and how Bellstar also was involved, and how things were not exactly new to him. Now, let me get to the phone and get Philip to assist us. Now, what would you say, how are we supposed to process the conflicting information that has been supplied us by, the various parties, from the UNIBANK, from the, central bank, from the Securities, Exchange Commission, and I guess we even had the SIC-FSL also making some claims that it was unaware of any such, development.
Thank you. I believe the whole misunderstanding revolves around the share pledge. We seem not to understand what is meant by share pledge. Does share pledge amount to takeover? The answer is absolutely no. Pledging of shares is one of the options that promoters of companies use to secure loans to meet their working capital requirements or whatever. Share pledging is a standard way of assessing funds for companies. And when you pledge shares, title remain with the owner. And so if the issue is these shareholders of ADB pledging their shares to UNIBANK, title remains with these shareholders, and it does not, and it has not moved to UNIBANK, even for it to trigger Bank of Ghana coming in through Section 52, Subsection 1 of the Banks and Specialized Deposit Taking Institution Act 2016 Act 90. So the issue is, if it were to be a major amalgamation, reconstruction, then by all means, Section 52, Subsection 1 will be followed, and Section 53 details the processes that need to be gone through, and even how Bank of Ghana will determine whether or not to accept the proposal are all detailed in the Act. Here you are with the Bank of Ghana saying that we have not received any such proposal and we have not given any such approval. And the word, the terminology that triggered this is share pledging. And I'm saying that share pledge does not constitute transfer of shares and transfer of title, and therefore transfer of shares.
Okay. So we have the various stakeholders in this pledging their shares to, and I'm talking about Bell Star Capital, Starmount Development Company, EDC, as well as the SIC Financial Services Limited, pledging their shares to UNIBANK. And you say that having pledged those shares to UNIBANK, shares which are in ADB to UNIBANK, it does not amount to giving UNIBANK a right, as it were, to become the one that owns those shares.
Emphatically, yes. If I pledge my share to my brother, who may want to, let's say, take a loan, a facility, whatever, it is a pledge, and it does not transfer title from me to the pledger, the bank, or whoever, or to my brother that I am assisting in possibly boosting his credit image to take a facility.
What will be the benefit that you gain, being the one that the shares have been pledged to? What benefit do you gain?
To me, the pledger, the person who has pledged.
You, the one to whom the shares have been pledged.
Oh, it boosts my. Assuming I want some facility elsewhere, anywhere. At least it boosts my credit worthiness.
Okay.
It shows that yes, there are some people who are prepared to protect me. I have collateral, so to say. It's a form of code. I have collateral.
Okay, so they are not pledging it to UNIBANK to use it for its own, but in the ADB. Is that not the case?
Hello?
Yes. Can you hear me?
No. I don't even think that it is in for ADB. It's for my own personal understanding. I don't think that it is for the purpose of dealings with ADB.
Okay. Explain that.
I'm saying that for my own understanding, it may not even be for the purpose of dealings with NIB, but
ADB.
It puts my own credibility. It puts my own. It's a form of collateral.
Okay.
That will give me put me in a position to, if I want to access credit facilities elsewhere, I should be able to say, oh, these are shares that are even pledged to me, and therefore which I can pledge, that can be pledged as collateral.
Okay. So it is.
So if I intended to, let's say, control ADB, it's not pledging of the shares, the shares of the remaining shareholders that I will need. Then that one, I will need a proper transfer to me, and that is what will trigger Section 52 of the Bank and Special Deposit taking as it's mouthful, so I'll call it Act 2016.
Right. Now, if you chanced on evidence to suggest that there was a process of transfer of the shares, will that change the circumstance?
Well, I'm not an insider. I'm not speaking purely out an insider and looking at the law and looking at what a pledge is, which I can emphatically say is not a transfer of title. And also saying that if it is meant to transfer title, then you go to Section 52, where Bank of Ghana processes will be triggered, and the proposal will be looked at by Bank of Ghana and approved by Bank of Ghana. And so if there's an information I don't know that talks about transfer of title. This information, by all means, needs to go to Bank of Ghana.
Okay.
Or Bank of Ghana to start their processes and trigger Section 52, subsection 1.
So it is completely wrong for anybody to suggest that by the combined pledges, UNIBANK has 51, percent controlling stake in ADB.
It is absolutely wrong. It is not right. It is not true.
So in common language, it means that it has rather gotten that 51% shares for its own use to boost its own activities.
The other minority shareholders are indicating that they pledge to UNIBANK in case they will need them, or possibly for to boost their credit.
Right.
If they want to source funds elsewhere, they can go and say that, yes, I have holdings in this bank, and even the minority holdings also have pledged their shares to me.
Okay.
But they have not transferred their shares to me.
All right. We have seen some documentation that clearly speak to the pledging of the shares.
Yes.
But it does appear that before we had the pledging of the shares, there had been a certain development. And that development was the transfer of shares, which were eventually reversed. So you have, first of all, I'm looking at, let me just share with you briefly. I'm looking at this letter dated the 10th of August, 2017, and it's from Belstar. And it's titled Reversal of Transfer of Shares. And it says that we write in reference to your letter dated the 3rd of August 2017, in which you confirmed the reversal of then it names the amount of shares in Agricultural Development Bank shares transferred to Belstar Capital Limited from SICFSL. In your letter, you also confirmed that the pledge of the shares to Belstar Capital Limited has been reinstated. We wish to draw your attention to the fact that SICFSL, in their correspondence to you on July 24, 2017, confirmed that in addition to the pledge, and they were ceding all rights and responsibilities attached to the pledged shares to Belstar. We are therefore by this letter serving notice to your outfit, both as the depository and as the registrars of ADB, that we shall proceed accordingly to exercise all rights and responsibilities attached to the said shares until we receive approval from the Bank of Ghana for the transfer. And then, they had attached various correspondences. What is your understanding of the content I've just read to you?
If you pledge a share, it's like you are mortgaging a share. You're mortgaging your share.
Okay.
And as I said, title does not pass to you. Remember, it was said at the last end that until we put together whatever and get to Bank of Ghana, it
right.
is until you go to Bank of Ghana that the transfer can take place.
Okay.
And as you see, I believe that initially there might have been. I'm listening to what I'm just listening to what you've told me for the first time.
Right.
And my understanding to it is that possibly there was an initial attempt to do a transfer, but coming to the knowledge that you cannot do this transfer without going through the stipulations of the Bank and SDI Act.
Right.
Possibly reverse and then made it a pledge.
Mm-hmm.
And the pledge possibly pending arrangements for a more legal, to go through the legal process. But until the legal process is gone through, there's no way anybody can say that a pledge amounts to transfer.
Okay. So when they refer to when they refer to
with the notice to securities the depository.
Right.
Yes. If you pledge, if you make a mortgage on your assets, you need to register it.
Okay.
So it's in the pledge. I believe that it is the pledge that they inform or register with the security depository.
Okay.
And that is fine.
All right.
The mere fact that you've registered that I have a pledge will not turn it into transfer.
Right. Maybe I'll share this final one with you. Then after that letter of 10th, you have another one from the SIC, Financial Services Limited, dated the 15th of August 2017. And it is going to Bellstar. And it's titled Reacquisition. I don't know if there is anything to do with the terminologies. Reacquisition of Agricultural Development Bank ADB shares. Then it says the Central Securities Depository, by their letter of August 3, 2017, reversed the transfer. And this is also about the same amount that had been referred to in the earlier letter of ADB shares from SIC FSL to Bellstar Capital. The reversal does not affect the terms of commercial paper between the SIC and Bellstar. Therefore, we would be grateful to receive financial terms from Bellstar Capital Limited for SIC reacquisition of the shares. Now, when you get this, does it change the circumstances for you now?
Okay, continue.
Yes, does it change the developments for you now?
The word reacquisition, I think legally is misfounded. In the first place, there was no acquisition to reacquire.
Right.
And the way I see commercial paper in there, I believe there might have been some commercial arrangement.
Yes, there is.
Yes, between the two.
There is.
And the pledge, you remember initially I talked of pledge being a form of collateral.
That's right.
So, and you take a collateral, if you take a mortgage, you need to register. It is part of the law.
Right.
And therefore, it was registered. And possibly that was where the terminology of reacquisition, if you use reacquisition, it creates the erroneous impression of our normal mergers, acquisitions, and whatever.
All right.
But here, there's a transaction between the two of you, and you have used your share as security, and now you are saying that you are no more using the share as security, and so it should be reversed, and therefore that registration or the security arrangement should be reversed. That is not acquisition.
Okay. Now, as you take leave of us, on the 19th of December 2017, the Securities and Exchange Commission, so far you would discover that they have come into the situation and have actually suspended ADB in the processes that have been ongoing. Now, they wrote on the 19th of December 2017, and they wrote to the board chairman of SIC Financial Services and said, request to investigate purchase of ADB shares through SIC commercial paper. They say a number of things, and then eventually, this is how they conclude, this is their conclusion, that the commission does not find any irregularity with regard to the CP transaction as far as our guidelines on investment in commercial paper issued on October 8, 2012 is concerned, and the ADB share purchase by SIC FSL. So, reading this, how do you juxtapose it with their reaction in suspending ADB?
Securities and Exchange Commission came in because ADB is listed. Is that
right,
not
that's so.
Right? Yes. And they are the regulators of the security market. That's in the same way that Bank of Ghana is the regulator for the banks and other financial institutions.
Right.
And so if they should hear, with all the hullabaloo that came up about the takeover, if you are the Director General, the person that you answer, how can there be a takeover of a listed bank for which I'm not privy to?
Okay.
And so immediately the right thing to do is to say, okay, let's hold on and do investigation. And then they do the investigation and they find out that it was more of a commercial paper security transaction that went on.
Right.
And therefore does not amount to a transfer or takeover.
Okay.
And therefore they had to act that no, the ADB should continue to trade on the market. Remember, if they should continue to hold on like this, it creates a problem. Already, there's a need for liquidity within the capital market. And if such misunderstandings, rumors, perceptions, are fed into the system and it is not properly investigated and then trading is stopped on a listed company, I don't think it was right. So it is right that the Securities and Exchange Commission quickly lifted the ban on the trading of shares of ADB.
Thank you very much indeed. Philip Kwesi Boabing is a lawyer and banker and former principal at the National Banking College. Thank you very much indeed for the explanation and the education that you've given us this morning. I'm going to start with Kweku.
Wow.
Yeah. Or you want to listen to Clara before?
Oh, no, I don't have a problem.
So proceed.
The truth is
what is your analysis of what is going on, generally?
Yes, I'm glad you said generally, because I have no in-depth knowledge or information on this things. I'm more or less at sea on it. It was from Thursday on Randy's program that I began to realize something may be going on. So since Thursday evening, I've been trying to assess some documentation, records, talking to people, some of which I realize you are reading here.
I try to emulate you.
Yeah, you're doing very good. You're doing very good there. You know something? From a very uneducated, if you like, ignorant position, I'm a bit worried. This financial sector landscape requires some stability, some predictability, some certainty. We've recently experienced some collapse of some banks.
Yes.
That was not a good signal, regardless of the causes. What is happening from my own uninformed positions, we have to be very careful. You see, there are a lot of conspiracy theories also circulating, political gossip here and there circulating. All those things put together is not creating a very good picture relative to the financial sector landscape, and I'm worried because it can send negative ripples both within and without relative to investor confidence and banking and all the rest. So I am praying that those conspiracy theories and things that I'm hearing or that are being thrown out, and very soon you hear a lot of them. Unfortunately, we have political commentators who are going to harp on those things and throw it out there and will not be helpful in terms of finding a solution. It appears to me that Bellstar Capital, is that the name?
Yes.
Yes, it appears to me that they had a mission, an objective to help UNIBANK raise capital. I have a sense that UNIBANK is going through a certain difficult phase in its operations, and so required some support, which is natural, and it has the potential. So apparently Bellstar and others thought, look, we could manage, if you like, a rescue operation of a sort for UNIBANK. It doesn't appear as if all those in charge of the management of the Ghanaian economy, the banking sector, the financial sector, are in agreement with the agenda that Bellstar and others appear to be pushing. That has created all these problems. This thing about the SIC thing, it looks as if, yes, I understood the gentleman very well. I got a bit of education there. But it looks as if in the process of pledging the shares, which they used as collateral, when a certain 60-day period elapsed, that collateral effectively became Bellstar's.
Right.
Am I right? Yes. And so all this created problems. And then now we are asking for a reversal. It appears a certain, is it the act, the bank, the new law, is it 930 or so?
930.
930. There was this misconception that wasn't enforced at the time. So there was an oversight. That is part of the problem. So there are serious regulatory challenges that have come with this whole transaction.
Okay.
My view, and this is because I don't know much and I'm being honest about this thing.
Right.
My view is that, look, it's important that we create conditions to prevent collapse of any indigenous bank. If we can, as much as possible, we must be committed to that in principle. We don't have too many, there are too many indigenous Nigerian banks here and outside elsewhere. I'm not sure how many Ghanaian banks operate in other jurisdictions.
There's a conversation that the central bank may not be excited about this because the finance minister had already announced, you know, a plan to have ADB and is it NIB
merged. That's part of the problem.
Some of these things will not help.
That's part of the problem, but and I haven't double checked from official sources because I got this last night that Bellstar initially offered to sell its shares to the government of Ghana. They gave government of Ghana the first offer in order that they can then take their resources to invest in UNIBANK.
Right.
There were delays with this. There haven't been much progress, and it is within the context. They had also arrangements with UNIBANK, time frame. So when that expired, then they decided that let's go for this share pledging approach. Okay. So for me, and the idea of merging ADB and NIB is a great idea. As far as I'm concerned, I hear all the players involved saying we support it. But of course, don't forget that government didn't have, I don't think government has a majority in the shares in ADB.
Because what we now see, including the SIC,
the SIC thing is hanging now.
Yeah, cumulative 51%.
For government?
No, 51% gone into Bellstar, UNIBANK.
But the SIC thing is hanging,
right.
As I said, even because of the regulatory challenges and things. And it's looking as if there's a conscious effort to reverse. It all depends on how Bellstar also conducts itself in this whole matter. But yes, government was not imposing a merger. Government was proposing that, look, we would want to merge these two entities to create a greater and bigger national.
I doubt it will find itself in the finance minister's, paper in Parliament if there had not been some agreement.
Yeah, I said not imposing, proposing. You propose, it goes through all sorts of channels for it to become a reality. It wasn't an imposition. It wasn't by fiat. Even though people have raised questions that if you don't have majority shareholding there, why make even that announcement prematurely? It's a legitimate argument, except that for me it is not a fatal injury. to the process. So I really didn't want to waste too much time on that. But the point I'm making, bottom line, is that please, 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 we should ensure that we make our banks, the indigenous banks, survive. Whatever can be done to keep these banks going, we must do. And then we must also help them to go beyond the Ghanaian jurisdiction and operate there. Look, at the end of the day,
give meaning to a Ghana beyond aid.
Yeah, well, when we come there, you see why I'm for it. As an Nkrumahist, of course, it'd be shocking if I wasn't for that vision. But please, I don't know much. The little I have said is still largely uninformed and not too competent.
Thank you. Yes. Deputy Attorney General, I'm sure that this would have gotten your department busy because the central bank and all of the other parties involved who are connected with the states will certainly come knocking on the Attorney General's, departments to get some ideas as to how to go about this.
Right there, that's apt. There's no doubt about that because of our strategic position in government and the fact that we are chief legal advisor to government and all that. There's no doubt about the fact that all that will have to come to us for us to see how we could get it resolved. But Samson, having listened to the teaser from the very people who spoke and then having listened to Uncle Kweku and all that, and all the things that we've all read, and etc., there's one thing that is very important for us to take note of, that the initial position, which was that there was a takeover, is not correct.
Which was clarified.
Yes, it was subsequently clarified. That is not correct.
Okay.
You see, I think that it got made here because of the releases that we got from the beginning. Because from ADB, we've heard something from them. We've heard from Bank of Ghana, Belstar, we've heard from UNIBANK and all that. And it looks like at the initial stage, there was no consistency. Of course, you are aware, and as of now, all are aware that in compliance with section, particularly Act 930, for you to do a takeover, you need to go through certain processes by the Bank of Ghana, etc. And indeed, they have the final approval that will need to give you that opportunity. So once that has not been done by the Bank of Ghana, any speculated, attempted taking over, real or imaginary, is fictional. It hasn't happened at all. So for me, the arrangement we have to put in place now is to ensure that we go in line with the statute. When statutory provisions are made, you have no discretion. When there's a statute stating a particular process or procedure you need to go through in order to particularize or let a certain transaction go through its normal process. If you do not go in accordance with that statutory process, whatever you have done is a nullity. And so the biggest fear that many had about this issue of takeover has been allayed. That's the fundamental basis of whatever we're discussing.
The governor said whatever was talked about was null and void.
Absolutely, and he said it on the basis of statute, that they have the final say in that. So, but you could hear, even the lawyer stated it without equivocation. He said that, look, it was a pledge, and it remains a pledge, and title hasn't passed. And so it could not be said that UNIBANK has a majority shareholding and therefore has taken over. Even if you read the release from UNIBANK themselves, they're very cautious in the way they craft it. And they say that there's a collaboration that they have. They are very cautious, and I believe that, lawyers may have advised them into whatever release that they made. Because if you get into this particular transaction in detail, and the fear I actually entertain, in fact, really, even people called me. For example, we're dealing with some issues, official issues in respect of ADB, and somebody called and said, oh, my issue will get out of hand. Now I hear UNIBANK has taken over ADB. What's happening? Very interesting indeed. So there was panic. And as Uncle Kweku rightly pointed out, when the initial releases came out, and then people did not understand and were misrepresenting and misinterpreting what was out there. In fact, the biggest threat that we can have to our economic growth and etc. is to create the lack of confidence in our indigenous banks. Once that is created and it gets into people that our indigenous banks are not performing and all that, then of course it will retard progress as far as I'm concerned. So the necessary steps that we ought to take in this particular regard will be taken. And I believe that in the not too distant future, the Ministry of Finance, the Governor of Bank of Ghana, and all the stakeholders in this, including but not limited to our office as well, will come out and then dispel all the rumors that are in town. And then we'll have to all put our hands on deck to ensure that we protect this. And of course, you rightly pointed out, our very hardworking finance minister has stated that there's going to be a measure of these two banks, and to ensure that we take government's investments in particularly agri sector and other investments to another level, to ensure that government's avowed aim of ensuring that we fight not just poverty alone, but the agri sector, we take it to another level, and investments and etc. Will be on track. So I would like to conclude on this by saying that, look, we wait to see in the not too distant future a lot of clarifications.
Now, what does Mama Yaga has to say about this? And also, the BNFT had reported, that was on Thursday, that the SIC, so I'll just read a portion of what they had reported. They said, SIC Financial Services Limited, one of the shareholders of ADB, has denied having pledged its shares in ADB to UNIBANK in fulfillment of an earlier financial commitment. A source within the company tells the BNFTonline.com that SIC, which is an arm of the state insurance company, a government entity, could not have been part of the consortium led by Bellstar Capital, a turnkey project finance and implementation institution. Okay, so if you take this against part of the documentation I have revealed to you, what would you say? They say that they are denying that they never pledged their shares in ADB to UNIBANK, but you have the documentation here showing the contrary.
No, they pledged to Bellstar.
Okay.
Or because there's an extension.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
you remember last week we agreed that we will start by greeting our constituents. We'll start by greeting our constituents.
That's a good one.
No, I thought that was the standard operational rules.
Oh, the two of you.
Yes. So his constituents are also my constituents.
So he forgot to do that. So
I'm greeting both of them.
So you two ignore that.
My constituents and his constituents jointly. I like that. We send our regards to them. We ought to have been there this morning greeting funerals.
So as Kweku pointed out directly, it was pledged or committed to Bellstar Capital.
Yes, I mean, I was going to correct that. That the SIC FSL arrangement was with Bellstar Capital, pledging. My take is informed by the law. The law is, in my opinion, simple and straightforward. And if you read it, it says, a person shall not enter into an arrangement or an agreement or arrangement for the sale, disposal, or transfer of the whole or part of the business of a bank, specialized deposit-taking institution, or financial holding company, unless the parties to the agreement or arrangement have submitted an application on the proposed agreement or arrangement and all other relevant information and documents for the approval of the Bank of Ghana. So this is a pure procedural matter. If you want to dispose of your shares, you should write to the Bank of Ghana and give details, and then the Bank of Ghana will look at it, approve. This doesn't deal with the content, whether it is a bad transaction or a good transaction. We haven't gotten to that stage. We are looking at procedure. And clearly, from the presentations and the discussions, there's been some backstage, backroom maneuvering. And at a certain point, you try to read into the minds of those who are maneuvering. What are they thinking? And you look at the terminologies that they are using. And sometimes you see them use terminology that gives some indication that perhaps they were thinking about transferring ownership. They were thinking about transferring shares. They were thinking about something else from the different letters and correspondences that you have read. But clearly, this was a pledging arrangement. And from what the experts in banking have told us, a pledging arrangement does not constitute a transfer. And in my opinion, it doesn't transfer control over ADB to the person the pledge has been made to. Remember that the person the pledge has been made to is not technically now a shareholder. The person will not attend shareholders meeting. The person will not be sitting there when decisions are made. The person doesn't have voting rights. So if you don't have voting rights and you're not sitting there when decisions are being made, in what ways would you actually in law be controlling a bank? You can't be controlling the bank. The human beings who are actual shareholders recognized by the Bank of Ghana are the ones who will be at shareholders meeting, the ones who will be voting. They may be impacted and influenced one way or the other by the arrangements that they have with you. But strictly speaking, they are the ones taking the decision. So there's no way that you can say that UNIBANK is controlling ADB as matters stand now. So one, I don't think that in substance we have gotten to a point where we will say that UNIBANK, if ultimately they end up owning the shares in, majority shares in ADB, something wrong has happened. That we haven't gotten to that stage.
Yes, but
as it is now,
one other critical point.
Yes.
All the talk,
yeah,
as we speak, per the situation now.
Yeah.
If there were supposed to be, and you refer to voting or whatever of shareholders at ADB.
Yes.
If that were to happen,
yeah,
will it be Belstar that will be exercising that right or not?
It will be the existing shareholders, and the existing shareholders are Belstar Capital with 24%, Starmont with 11%, EDC Investment I think with 6%, SICFSL with 10%, Government of Ghana with 32.3%, Bank of Ghana with 9.5%, and the employees, whoever is representing them, with 5%. Those are the people who will be voting. As for UNIBANK and Belstar and etc., the only problem I have is that under the arrangement between SICFSL and Belstar, they purport to be transferring voting rights,
yes,
to them. They purport to be transferring voting rights to them. But you see, that one is subject to some different analysis because Belstar Capital is already a shareholder and will be sitting there and participating in the voting on the basis of their own shares. And then a colleague shareholder has entered into an arrangement with them saying that I will transfer my voting rights to you in addition to rights that you already have to participate in the vote. But UNIBANK is no party to any of these and cannot be at the shareholders meeting, cannot take any decision, cannot vote, cannot impact on it unless maybe indirectly based on the arrangements that they have. So on the side of UNIBANK, I don't see any problem.
Thank you. Yes, Clara.
Yes, a lot of well, good morning to our viewers and listeners.
You don't have constituents to greet.
To the entire Ghanaian people. My constituents are the Ghanaian people.
Right.
To the entire Ghanaian people, that includes your constituents. But a special shout out to them because myself and their MP were mates in law school.
Right.
So a special shout out to them.
Right.
Now, with respect to the issues, a lot of discussion has gone on already and a lot of education has gone on already. But what I want to look at is generally the idea of a regulated industry. The reason is because the banking industry is a regulated industry. And it is a regulated industry for good reason. The regulation covers licensing, but not only the business activities of the banks. If you look at the law, it includes issues about ownership, and not just ownership, but who is in control of what. So if you look at the section 49 of the Act 930, you realize that it covers at least 3 areas. One is that the Bank of Ghana is interested in who is the beneficial owner of shares. So to the extent that the banks will have to give to the Bank of Ghana the named shareholders, that is the individuals holding the shares in title. The banks must also disclose who has beneficial ownership. That is the person who is not on the record as the title holder of the shares, but who ultimately benefits, who ultimately enjoys the benefits that come with holding shares. And what are some of the benefits that come with holding shares? You are entitled to dividends, and you are entitled to voting rights, and then you have other issues. So any time that, even though it is possible to have one person holding the shares, but another person enjoying the benefit, which means that the dividends go to another person. It's another person who has a right to exercise voting rights. You can have that arrangement. So the purpose of this is that anytime you have that arrangement, the Bank of Ghana must be in the know. Then secondly, the Bank of Ghana is not just interested in direct acquisitions or direct controls. It is interested in direct and indirect. So if you look at Section 49, it covers situations of direct and indirect shareholding. And the third thing that Section 49 covers is change in control, which essentially is the fact that there may not be a transfer of shares, legally speaking. But if you look at any transaction where another person or somebody increases their control in that situation, they must get Bank of Ghana approval, and it is for good reason. If this wasn't the case, the issues Kweku expressed would be very, there's a great fear, because it's very easy to circumvent the law if all we have to do is just look at the legalities and the forms and the descriptions that we attach to what. So the effect of Section 49 also covers the substance of whatever arrangement that we have. Now, given this information, I don't have the particular facts as to what the nature of this transaction is. But the fact that we call it a pledge doesn't necessarily mean that the Bank of Ghana approval is not required. That is not true. The reason I say it's not true is it will depend on the pledge agreement. So you will need to see the contents of the pledge agreement to decide whether or not Bank of Ghana approval is required. An example, if you take the pledge agreement and in that pledge, for the time that the pledge is in existence, it is Party A, not the original shareholder, who is entitled to the benefits of the share. 1, dividends, and then 2, voting rights. Then effectively, you will now have to come down and look at the Bank of Ghana thresholds, because they have thresholds that if it changes, if the control changes, you would require Bank of Ghana approval. It starts from 5% upwards. So even if you are an existing shareholder and you increase your shareholding to the extent that you now have significant control, the Bank of Ghana needs to be in the know. The issue is because the banking industry is an important industry. It is a regulated industry. So the Bank of Ghana must have an idea what is going on. Like I said, with respect to the current facts of UNIBANK, I'm not exactly clear what the facts are, but these are the general requirements that apply.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, just to
and I was trying to see if any of the developments prior to all of these arrangements, like you have referred to backdoor activity and Kwekutu has referred to something that may not be proper or so that may have gone on. You would recall that when a certain loan amount, that was the loan amount of, is it 10 million or so, was supposed to be given to a client of the ADB. At the time when it didn't have a board, Bellstar disapproved of the disbursement. But what we know now is that that disbursement was done. Could it be that there are things that are going on that obviously seem to, disturb the relationship?
Well, I mean, like she indicated, we are not seized with all the facts. So a lot of the discussions that we are engaged in here, basically we look at the specific provisions of the law and then we do some analysis.
Right.
I have some reliable information that pursuant to the provisions of the Act that they must provide at least 3 months advance notice of some of these transactions to the bank in order to obtain approval. That in relation to some of the transactions, they actually provided notice about 6 months ago, but haven't heard from the bank yet. But we can't confirm this. These are pieces of information we're all gathering, and none of them is disclosing full details of exactly what happened. I'm sure you have. The nature of the industry. The nature of the industry. You have these documents because, like most journalists will do, my senior Kokubako does. Look at the documents before.
Interceptor General.
No, he intercepts documents. So you intercepted these documents. So we don't have all the full details, what is happening and etc. And banks tend to be very, very stingy with information, especially regarding their transactions. They won't put everything out there. Okay. So generally, if we're just looking at the black letter law, whether or not there was a transfer of shares, if you look at this section, clearly there wasn't a transfer of shares.
Thank you very much.
Now, her arguments about control and etc., in my opinion, are very valid points, but we need to get the full details to be able to come to some conclusion on the matter.
Just a second, please. Yes, because if you look at, I'm reading from section 49(2)(d). The section 49(2)(d) says that despite any other enactment, a person shall not, without the prior approval in writing of the Bank of Ghana, enter into an agreement or arrangement which will result in a change in the control of a financial holding company. So if you look at that provision, it's checking the control, and it's a pledge is an agreement. So unless you know the contents of the agreement, you're unable to say one way or the other what has gone on. And like I said, it's really important because the enlightened view that Kweku expressed, the banking industry is a very important industry to the growth of any country. To the growth of any country. So we need to really be very careful and pay a lot more attention to it.
Right. You are in commercial practice, so you have some good insights, and thanks for sharing them with us. We will take a break here, and when we return, we will find out how it happened in Ghana that utility tariffs were revised downward, 17.5 and 30%. Did you ever think that could happen in Ghana? And how did a regulator who just some months ago argued vehemently that it needed to increase the tariffs so much that it had to now stagger the increment over a period, suddenly has come down so much and is expecting to do same for water? We'll be right back.